and welcome back to Build Propulsion Lab at JCON Europe. Hey, coming to you live from Cologne, Germany. And my next guest is Jeffry McGuire. Welcome, Jeffry.
Thank you so much.
And there is a lot of interesting stuff about Jeffry, like a lot. So I guess by the name, the last name and the accent, American originally.
Yes.
But living in local to Cologne.
Yes.
Those days. And very interesting Twitter handle, Horn Cologne.
Horn Cologne, yes.
Right, so very local, but also not. So that's an interesting story. And even more interesting story is marketing of all things.
Yep, and no Java.
And doing something at JCON, which we all know what J stands for. A lot to unpack. Go for it.
J is for Jeffrey.
Not for Java. So maybe JCON is for Jeffrey. Aha! There is a mystery. Go for it. What, why, what, whom, everything.
I am here at my second JCON, which is great, and a few people even remembered me positively from the last time, which I was really thrilled about.
Mustache.
I mean,
it's almost like head, but even better.
If that's only half of it, then I'm happy. I hope people remember me because I said something that made some sense.
Mustache. I know. It's always the head.
So last year I saw that JCON was going to be here in Cologne, and out in open source CMS PHP land, I've been to a lot of conferences and I've done a lot of conference speaking, a lot of podcasting, and I saw the call for papers here, and I wrote to the organizers and said, hey, I love doing this stuff and I love tech communities, and I could really happily do a talk, and I cost nothing. I'm just here. And the team really kindly gave me the last slot on the last day, a famously awesome guest slot, and actually a bunch of people came to my talk. And it like generated a bunch of great conversations, and so here I am again. I passed whatever the test was.
So hear me out. Last slot on the last day. That's the talk that I usually get, and I have I convinced myself that this is because the talk is going to be so great, and organizers know it, that they keep it as a reason for people to stay.
It's very nice of you.
Right? This is what I tell myself. Now you can tell the same story and feel good about having the last slot of the last day. So, but you've been upgraded, and this year you are not the last slot of the last day. So, what are you talking about? What it has to do with Java in particular and software in general?
So, my talk this time is building, team building, community building through positive communication. And so it doesn't really have anything to do with Java, but all of us, and I think, everyone here at this conference and listening to this is working on a team now, or has worked on a team, or is leading a team. And I suspect that all of us have also had difficult, uncomfortable work experiences or workplaces where it was harder to work than others. And my co-founder and I at Open Strategy Partners both came out of difficult working circumstances at various points in our careers. And when we figured out, I think even before we figured out exactly what our business was going to be, we said to each other, we have to make a place where we would have wanted to work. And we very consciously thought about nonviolent communication, we thought about positive psychology, we thought about documentation, things that had been missing in various ways. And 7 or 8 years later, we've got a team of 14 people and who are, as far as I know, really happy to work with us. And they tell us so. And when I said to the team recently, hey, I think this is a good idea for a talk, how are we doing? They came back with a few pages of feedback that I just turned into my slides yesterday.
So let me just say, this is very relevant, this is very important, and this is very frequently missing in technology conferences, right? We speak about like, how do we pack Quarkus microservices into containers to run in the cloud, and everybody are very happy about it, but eventually they come to their place of work and they write code like maybe on a good day 2 hours a day.
Yep.
Everything else will be your team dynamics, will be interaction with other people, will be everything else.
Client calls,
Exactly.
writing reports. Yep.
So yeah, all right. So particularly for software engineers,
Yes.
how those things different from, let's say, marketing professionals or anyone else? Is there something special about software engineers that stands out?
I would say that even though it's a cliche that software developers are not great communicators. It is sometimes true, but honestly, and I come out of the open source world, and anyone in open source software development, in the end, to build a coalition, to convince people to contribute or be in a community, you can write great tickets, or maybe you write great commit notes, or maybe you're a good speaker, but there's always communication there, right? However, software developers often have trouble dealing with the regular people who are not immersed in our world of repositories and code and how we do things, right? And there's often a break between the technical departments and the other departments, right? And then because humans are socialized to spend time and want to interact with like-minded people, my experience a lot of times is that in organizations, you have however many software teams, and if they're writing different languages, maybe they don't even talk with each other, which I think is not a good idea because we can all learn from each other. But then worse of all, the marketing team and the sales team and the developers don't talk with each other, right? And we end up, as technical people, we end up with marketing messages that are wrong. We end up with sales selling things that we don't know how to build, but we have to fix their problem later, right? And so I think this opening up and accepting that the business side of the house, right, they're paying our salary, right? Like those crazy people making those weird calls and like that aggressive, loud behavior, they're also needed in our ecosystem. And I think we all need to realize that like we're an organism, right, functioning together.
Yeah, this is very true. So I think kind of you mentioned that it's a cliche that software engineers are not great communicators, but I think there is something in that. I mean, yes, obviously not everybody are the same. And yes, obviously, you know what, we're a software conference, people came here, they're networking, it was a decision they made, so they realized that they can do it and it's important and everything else. But there is also a lot of people that went to computers because they don't want to interact with people. They're in for a disappointment because they will end up interacting with people, but the whole thing is, hey, I want to write my code, I don't want to deal with all this, and all the rest is like office politics, and I hate people and what's not. So what do you say to those people? How can we help them overcome, because they're in for a very, very hard time. So how do we help those who really the introverts, those who don't really want to get out there and actually have any communications with anyone?
If you don't want to have any communications with anyone, I don't know how that works in life. And it's certainly not my case. I am not an introvert. I run a team of technical communicators. So I have people who come from software development, I have people who come from marketing, but there's always a technical affinity there. And even on a team of professional communicators, there are the people who are really doing all this all the time, and the people who like listen carefully, ask a smart question, go do the thing. That's still okay, right? If you can be present enough to be polite and listen and do your work well, you're gonna get really far. If you absolutely can't stand dealing with people, at least now, most of us can choose to work remote, right? And I think that that's the biggest change between now and 5 years ago.
For sure.
That you can get a lot of good jobs and live much more of your life the way you want to. And that's really interesting. It's been true for a long time, but I think it's more true now. And if you really don't like dealing with people, I think there are a lot of opportunities to do solo kind of stuff, right? And I don't know how many people in the Java conference are taking that path, right? But if you can possibly, focus enough to win a couple of clients or get that job, right? I think the world is kinder now than it's ever been.
I agree. I think it's much more acceptable right now to not like be there with everybody, go to lunches together and all this kind of stuff, which I think makes it much easier for introverts in those days. There is also, I think one more thing is being very upfront about it. Right, and setting expectations with your boss, with your colleagues that, hey, folks, I love you a lot. Every time you want to convey something to me, it will be much more effective in an email than a meeting.
You're taking my talking points, right? Expectation management is the number one path to success if you're marketing, if you're selling, if you talk with clients, if you're building a team. And nowadays, right, as you said, we know that people on the autism spectrum are a lot of our colleagues. We know that I think now we understand and accept that people are so different, right? And neurodiversity isn't a topic that you can talk about openly. And I have neurodiverse people on my team. And in fact, right, here's a fun trick that we did a few years ago. And now that you reminded me, I'm going to do it with the new people. You can find online, you can find different patterns to write a self-manual.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I communicate
yes.
best this way. Please don't do this with me.
Yes.
These are my favorite things. These are my least favorite things. And there's you can do it like with a set of 6 or 12 questions. And then we did those and then we presented them to each other. And in theory, and I hate saying in theory, but I believe that they're also in our company handbook, like for the team that did that a couple of years ago.
Exactly. So there is, like, I have it, a lot of other people have it, the manual of how to interact with a person that you present or send, if you don't want to present, to other people on what will make you more comfortable, most most effective, more productive, and expectation management. That's the key. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Jeffrey, thank you very much. It was absolutely awesome. And you all check all the available materials that are JCON Talk last year, JCON Talk this year, that is going to be published sooner than later.
OpenStrategyPartners.com.
At OpenStrategy on Twitter and I guess everywhere else. With that, stay tuned to more interviews of Build Propulsion Lab at JCON Europe later today and also tomorrow. Jeffrey, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Baruch. It was great.